Good evening, everyone. I'm Ankit, and you're watching the Indian Express analysis on StudyIQ IS English. Today is 4th of March, and we are going to discuss important articles which I've taken from the newspaper. First of all, we'll be dealing with olive Ridley turtles, as these turtles have mass nested in the coast of Odisha. Now, this is an annual event which happens in India and also in other countries. Now, this olive Ridley turtles, they are an important marine animal. So, we'll discuss this particular species and also their important nesting locations, particularly in the coast of Odisha and other parts of the world. Now, this news article primarily is important from GS paper 3 perspective, as this is a protected species. Therefore, when any such protected species they appear in the news, what we have to take a look is their behavioral patterns, is their protection, as well as their known habitats. Hence, we'll be covering this article. Then we'll move on to discussing the US's move to make a crypto reserve. This crypto reserve is very important as far as US economy is concerned, and primarily because earlier there was this trend that many countries they were moving away from these private cryptocurrencies, and as a result of which they started to bring their own digital currencies, right? But after this move, what we have seen that the demand for private cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., they are expected to increase in the recent future, mainly driven by US's move to create a strategic reserve of cryptocurrencies, right? So therefore, this article becomes important both from GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3 perspective, which is a part of GS syllabus, right? So therefore, this becomes important. I don't know why this pen works very strangely sometimes. This is important from GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3 perspective, right? Then we'll be discussing about a very known historical personality, Amir Khusrau, who served as a court poet to 5 different Delhi Sultanate kings, and we'll understand his contribution in India's culture, primarily in India's literature as well as music. Now, this Amir Khusrau was in news because recently Prime Minister went to an event in Delhi which actually commemorated the achievements of Amir Khusrau. So in that regard, whenever Prime Minister visits such kind of an event, it becomes important from our exams perspective. And I'll also demonstrate you the previous examples where Prime Minister has taken a visit someplace and that visit was directly a subject of prelims question, right? So therefore, we can't ignore such important developments that might be important from GS paper 1 perspective, which is related to India's art and culture, right? Then we'll be discussing about a repealed law on dramatic performances. This law was actually a law which was passed by the colonial government. However, after India became independent and the constitution came into fruition, there was this provision in the constitution that said that until or unless these laws are not repealed by the central government, the laws which were enacted during colonial period, they will continue to remain in effect in India. But as a result, few years back, Indian government had decided to repeal many thousands of colonial laws that had become obsolete in India, right? And one of which was the law of dramatic performances. And Prime Minister in his recent speech actually gave this example, highlighting how government has created situations or conditions that favor ease of doing business in India, right? So therefore, we are going to discuss this article, and also we are going to discuss how colonial laws are different from laws which are passed by the independent Indian government, right? Then we'll be moving on to a study of Lancet study and risk of obesity. Now, obesity is a prevalent problem which not just plagues India but also other parts of the globe, and this recent Lancet study has highlighted that the prevalence of obesity, which is known to be increasing, it is going to increase much more higher than the rate expected. And this article also highlights the condition which actually promotes the growth of obesity and what can actually governments do in order to control this menace, right? So this article becomes important from GS paper 2 perspective, as social sector with emphasis of health is directly given in your GS paper 2 syllabus, right? Then we'll be moving on to the last article of the day, that is geopolitics of critical minerals. Now, critical minerals in general we have covered many times in our session, but that coverage was limited to the economic aspects of critical minerals, right? But recent articles on the critical minerals, they highlight a geopolitical aspect as well. Therefore, there's a trend in UPSC which will understand that it is trying to make questions which can cover multiple fields. For example, it can cover international relations, it can cover science and tech, it can cover economy. Hence, knowing such kind of an article and our ability to analyze such kind of an article from multiple perspectives becomes very important in this exam, right? So therefore, this article becomes important from GS paper 3 perspective as well as 2 perspective, right? So we are going to cover in detail these articles today. Now, good evening, Baga Spinks, Sejal, Niranjan, Lydia, Rishav, Kesaria. Hello, every one of you. A very warm welcome to the session. Now, as usual, the notes for this session will be available on my Telegram channel called as ATS Live. You can search the keywords ATS Live on the top right hand corner of your app, and also if you are still unable to find the channel, you have an option to scan this QR code. It will take you directly to my channel. What you have to do is subscribe to the channel, and I upload notes every day and also give you the important links for the many sessions that I take on YouTube. Also, please do not forget to give us a thumbs up on YouTube, as it helps our content reach more people, and also it acts as a source of motivation for me to keep doing these sessions on a daily basis, right? So please do me a favor and do hit the like button there. Now, before moving into our today's discussion, let us get away with the yesterday's practice question that I gave you in the end. This practice question is actually a previous year question which appeared in the prelims of 2024. This question: how many delimitation commissions have been constituted by the government of India till December 2023? Now, this ones who are watching this session, please let me know the correct answer. Sarang says option D. Baga Spink says option D. Good evening, Narsimha. Kesaria, option D. Yes, all of you are correct. Since the time India got independent, although the delimitation ideally should have happened after every census, but in practice what we have seen that the delimitation process was stopped after 1976, because from 42nd Amendment Act and therefore after 84th Amendment Act, this freeze over delimitation was initially up till 2001 census, then it moved up till now till 2026. So therefore only 4 delimitation commission had been formed until now. Yes, Rishav, yes, Sejal, Narsimha, Lydia, all of you are correct. Option D is the right answer. So see, this is how you understand current affairs, and now you are also able to solve previous year questions from UPSC. So this is how integrating current affairs in your daily preparation helps you become a better aspirant and also increases the probability and the chances of you qualifying the UPSC exam, right? So this is the direct demonstration of how you should approach current affairs. Now this is the practice question that we are going to discuss today, the article of which is the last article that I said it will highlight the strategic importance of critical minerals in contemporary geopolitics, and how can India secure its supply chain for minerals to support its energy transition and technological ambition. And you have to write this answer in 250 words, and this question carries the weightage of 15 marks, right? Now, before solving this question, let us deal with the important articles of the day. We'll start with this first article, and as you can see, this article appeared in the explain section. This article highlights why olive ridleys came to Odisha nesting grounds in larger number this year. Now this article appeared on page 14 of the Indian Express newspaper, and important species in news are very important as far as your UPSC prelims is concerned. You have to know their habitats, you have to know their protected status, and also you have to understand their behavioral patterns. These kind of facts are directly picked up by UPSC when they are forming the questions, right? So in this regard, let us first understand the context of this article. Now, today's article highlights that nearly 7 lakh olive ridley turtles have laid their eggs in the Rushikulya Rookery, which is located in Odisha. It is actually a nesting ground where this female olive ridley turtles, they lay down their eggs. Now it is located in Ganjam district of Odisha, and the nesting, it happened between February 16th and February 25th. Now the development itself, it came after the region, it did not witness any mass nesting last year, that is in 2024. However, in 2023, 6.37 lakhs of olive ridley turtles, which is an endangered marine species, they actually laid down their eggs. So this year is actually a higher number as compared to 2023. There was not a mass nesting that happened in 2024. Now the coast of Odisha, where Rushikulya and Girmatha rookeries are located, it is world's largest mass nesting ground for these olive ridley turtles. Other nesting grounds are located in the coast of Mexico as well as Costa Rica. So if a question appears that are these nesting grounds located only in India, that statement will become incorrect, because as you can understand, the largest nesting ground is in India, but also other important locations for nestings are coast of Mexico and Costa Rica. Understood? Now in this regard, let us try to understand about this species in news, that is olive ridley turtles. Now it is actually the smallest and one of the most abundant of all sea turtles which is found in the world. In terms of habits, they are omnivorous in nature, that is they eat both fishes as well as plants. They are known for their unique mass nesting, and this mass nesting process is known as aribada, right? Now just see this image, right? You can see actually these turtles on a seashore and they are participating in a mass nesting incident, right? So this is actually what aribada is. Now let us try to ascertain their habitats. Now they are primarily found in the warm water regions of the earth, therefore they are available in Pacific, Atlantic as well as Indian Ocean, right? So what you have to realize that they are not so much more present in the cold waters. Now Odisha's Ghirmatha Marine Sanctuary, it is world's largest rookery of sea turtles, as I have already told you, which is located in the coast of Odisha. Now in terms of the arrival this year, why actually this arrival has been highest in the recent memory? Now there are many reasons for that. First is the existence of favorable weather conditions. Now because of lack of rain in February in the coast of Odisha, what we saw that less rain, it means that there is no erosion in the beach, and when there is no erosion in the beach, it provides actually the sufficient space for the river or the river mouth near the olive ridley turtles, so that the river will deposit huge amount of alluvium, and when there is no higher amount of rain, these alluvium will not get drained into the sea. So because this high amount of alluvium, which is a form of sand, if it exists near the coast, it actually proves a very good ground for olive ridley turtles to lay their eggs. Also the beach gradient, that is the slope of the beach. If the slope of the beach is less, so you can understand when the slope of the beach is less, it will be easier for turtles to climb up till the coast, right? So therefore the beach gradient also plays an important role, and the slope of beach from the top till the water's edge, which was less this year it compared to the previous year, therefore it made it easier for the turtles to climb up the beach area, right? So these are the two conditions, that is a favorable weather condition made by less rain, and also existence of a lesser slope actually favored the condition for turtles to lay their eggs, and that is why their numbers were higher this year. Also, the protection status of any species in news becomes very important. As far as their IUCN status is concerned, they are categorized as vulnerable. Please remember that. Many places in the news also they are written as endangered species, but actually when you find out that their protection status is vulnerable. In terms of India's Wildlife Protection Act, they are having the highest security or highest protection, that is Schedule 1, which means capturing and hunting of these olive ridley turtles, it is punishable offense in India. As far as CITES convention is concerned, here they are protected under Appendix 1. So this is the protection status that is offered to the olive ridley turtles. Now let us understand the threats that actually plague these kind of species. Now first of all, they are quite known for as a food for humans in many countries, and that is why it acts as a threat for them. Also marine pollution and waste, especially microplastics that are present in the water, it actually pollutes the water bodies, and not just it pollutes water bodies, it also is detrimental to the health of the olive ridley turtles. Also fishing trawlers, whenever they are trying to fish in a region, so by mistake those nets they also can catch these olive ridley turtles. So these are the prominent threats that plague the existence of olive ridley turtles. Now there were many initiatives that were taken especially by India to protect these olive ridley turtles. First of all was an Operation Olivia, which was an operation by Indian Coast Guard. They tried to catch the persons who were actually hunting these olive ridley turtles in the sea. Also a mandatory inclusion of turtle excluder device was made mandatory for the fishing trawlers, so that these turtle excluder device will actually exclude the turtles from the net fish catch that they can do. And when this turtle excluder devices is installed in the fishing boats, it actually will lead to release of turtles back into the ocean. Also tagging of these boats and important nests are important, so that you can actually track who people are actually involved in the fishing and whether or not they have installed turtle excluder devices in their fishing boats. So these were the initiatives that were taken by Government of India primarily to protect the species of olive ridley turtle. Understood? Now let us try to solve this question and see whether you have learned this topic or not. Now consider the following statements regarding olive ridley turtles. The olive ridley turtles, they are found only alongside the coast of India. What did I tell you? They are appearing in large numbers in India Indian coast, and particularly in terms of mass nesting event, the amount of mass nesting is highest in India. But did I tell you or not that these mass nestings, they also happen in the coast of Mexico and also in Costa Rica, right? So therefore, this first statement becomes incorrect. Now moving to the second statement, they are listed under Schedule 5th of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now Schedule 5th actually is the schedule where you categorize vermins, like, and hunting of vermins or species who are mentioned in Schedule 5 is actually permissible as per the Wildlife Protection Act. But as far as olive ridley turtles are concerned, under the Wildlife Protection Act, they are given the status of highest protection, that is Schedule 1 and not Schedule 5. So second statement again becomes incorrect. Now the hatchlings of olive ridley turtles immediately migrate to freshwater habitats after birth. Is this correct? Can anyone let me know? Now, no, this is not correct, because they do not immediately move to freshwater, rather they move to saltwater territories like oceans. Okay, so these are not freshwater species, they are saltwater species. So third statement also becomes incorrect. Now all of these three are incorrect and we have to identify correct statement. Therefore option D here becomes the right answer. Sarang, Baga Spinks, Ashil, Narsimha, Rishav, Lydia, Sejal, all of you are correct. Good evening Yashi. Saujanya, good evening. Okay, Sarya, my mentor gave me search video. Okay, Baga Spinks, if we only found your class channel before, no problem if you found it now. Ashil Patel, good evening. Answer is D. I hope you are answering about the practice question. Yes, you're right. Sejal, Rishabh, also you're right. Saltwater species. Yes, Sejal, you're correct. Now moving to the next article of the day. This article appeared in the business page of today's newspaper, that is on page 13. And if you look at this article, it states that the President Trump, he has reiterated its focus on virtual digital assets, prominently the cryptocurrencies, and he has backed 5 coins to be called or to be categorized as a crypto reserve in US. Now recently there was this trend among many people that they were moving towards private cryptocurrencies. Now these private cryptocurrencies, these are not digital coins issued by the central banks, rather these are privately owned digital coins. But on the other side, the downside of these private crypto coins is that they are not backed by any solid asset, unlike the fiat currencies of many countries. So there was this apprehension among many governments that if or not they can rely on cryptocurrencies. Also from the historical examples, you might have seen that what is the first order of business that any ruler makes in the history, that is they start printing and minting their own coins whenever they come to power. Similarly, in the world economies, you'll see it is the sovereign right of the nation's central bank itself, that is they try to print the currencies, and this becomes a legal tender across the world. So therefore moving away from these fiat currencies and depending on cryptocurrencies can actually prove very detrimental to world's economy, and as a result many central banks have now came up with their own digital currencies, like RBI has came up with e-rupee, which is central bank digital currency as far as India is concerned. Similarly, many other countries have done the same. Now the move away from cryptocurrencies has actually taken a back turn now, because US under the President Trump has actually backed 5 private cryptocurrencies, and US has said will make a strategic reserve out of these private cryptocurrencies. Now creating a strategic reserve of cryptocurrencies during his presidential bid was one of the election promises of President Trump, and he has actually made sure to implement this election promise by highlighting that Bitcoins, Ethereum, XRP, Solana and Cardano, all 5 are private cryptocurrencies. They will constitute what is called as a strategic reserve of cryptocurrencies. So in this regard, let us try to understand what are strategic reserve of cryptocurrencies and how actually keeping a strategic reserve of cryptocurrency will benefit or be risky for United States. Okay. Please make sure these are the 5 cryptocurrencies that will be kept in the US's cryptocurrency reserve. Okay. Now, what is first of all a strategic reserve? You might have heard the word strategic reserve in cases of oil. Like many countries in the world, including India, they have significant amount of storage capacity for keeping crude oil. And this storage capacity makes India a very good country, because during crisis times, you can rely on these strategic reserve to meet the demands of crude oil, right? Similarly, many other countries keep strategic reserves for many other commodities which might be important for that country, right? So similarly, like India has a strategic petroleum reserve known as SPR. US also has strategic petroleum reserve, whereas Canada, it keeps a strategic reserve of maple syrup. Now maple syrup is actually a type of food, so you can understand the seriousness of Canada when it comes to dealing with commodities. It is not keeping a strategic reserve of important metals or commodities, rather it is keeping a strategic reserve of maple syrup, whereas China has strategic reserve for metals, grains, and even pork products. So any kind of commodity which might be interpreted by any country as an important commodity might be saved and stored for safekeeping purposes. So similarly, US has now tried to build up a strategic reserve for what? Cryptocurrencies. Okay, now let us understand how does actually US would build on this cryptocurrency. Now US will include cryptocurrencies that the government has or might have seized from criminals, and this will stand at around 2 lakh tokens, which will constitute about 21 billion at their current prices. Also, they might add more to the stockpile by buying more bitcoins from the open market. Now, for any government to buy bitcoins from the open market, it has to issue debt, like it has to give government securities in return in exchange for cryptocurrencies, and it can also decide to sell some of its gold reserves in order to purchase these cryptocurrencies. And the point of view of the US government is that it will sell many things in order to buy cryptocurrencies from the market and build a huge reserve of cryptocurrencies. Now let us understand why is actually US making such kind of a move. Is it an idiotic move, or there is some strategic rationale behind it? Now the answer to that is there is an actual strategic rationale behind it. It is not something impulsive in nature. Now, suppose US keeps a buffer or a stock of cryptocurrencies. Now, when this stock of cryptocurrencies, the prices of this cryptocurrencies increase, you can understand the reserve size of US will also increase. Similarly, it will help US dominate the global market of cryptocurrencies, which is currently dominated by China. It does not want China to have a hold over these private cryptocurrencies. So, therefore, it is keeping a reserve for it, or for themselves, which it can liquidate in case of shortages of cryptocurrencies in the world market. Also, in cases of appreciating cryptocurrencies, if the value of these cryptocurrencies which are kept in the reserve, if they increase like normal commodity prices, it will reduce the overall deficit of the United States without even having to raise taxes. Now, how does government make money? It primarily makes money by levying taxes on its subject, but other sources of money is that when government's asset, its prices increase. So when the cryptocurrencies which will be held up by the US government, its prices increase, it will reduce the overall government debt without even having to raise taxes. Also, it will strengthen the US dollar, which ultimately the US government wants. Further, it isn't the case that there is no risk at all with this move. There is significant amount of risk. First of all, you have to understand these cryptocurrencies are private cryptocurrencies and they are not backed by any commodities. So when it comes to their intrinsic value, there is none. On the other hand, other commodities like gold, which are used in reserve, it has a value of its own. That gold is demanded everywhere, and when you decide to sell gold, you will actually get a money out of it. Similarly, the value of cryptocurrencies is not driven by any commodity. Therefore, there is no intrinsic value. And in recent times, we have seen that the prices of cryptocurrencies, they actually go up and go down quite frequently, which makes them quite volatile in nature as far as the assets are concerned. Also, they are vulnerable to cyber attacks, because these are not physical currencies. These actually are stored in the computer systems. So theoretically, although it is quite difficult, but theoretically, there is a possibility that the cyber attacks might gain control of these cryptocurrencies. So these are the threats that might be posed with such cryptocurrency asset reserve. However, there are many benefits, particularly for the US government, primarily that what if the value of cryptocurrencies they appreciate, it will help US reduce its overall debt levels and deficit levels without having to raise taxes, and it will also allow US to dominate the supply chain of the cryptocurrencies, which is currently dominated by China. So this is the move by cryptocurrency or by the US. Now, did not expect maple syrup. Well, maple syrup, I guess, is used in addition of pancakes. It is a food, actually. Yes, Baga Sphinx, it is like honey but made from maple trees. It is a condiment that is eaten with pancakes. Yes, you're right. Now let us move to the next article of the day. This article actually highlights that Prime Minister Modi, he went to a gathering which commemorated the achievement of Amir Khusrau, who is an important historical figure in medieval India. Now, this kind of an article actually appeared in Saturday's newspaper, but as I was on leave, so we missed out on this article. But now it gives me the opportunity to cover this article, which is important from art and culture perspective. But the question is, why am I covering this article? First of all, let us understand the context of this event. As you can see, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he inaugurated the 25th edition of Jahan-e-Khusro Sufi Music Festival, which held at Sundar Nursery in New Delhi. Now, I don't know how many of you reside in New Delhi, but if you haven't visited Sundar Nursery, please make sure to visit this location. It is a beautiful garden. Okay, now we are talking about this Jahan-e-Khusro Sufi Music Festival, which commemorated the achievement of Amir Khusrau. Now, I'll give you certain demonstrations or example where a Prime Minister visit has actually led to the question in UPSC prelim. Now see these two screenshots. These two screenshots are actually from the questions that appeared in the 2022 prelims. Now if you see from this screenshot, this question on your left, it states that the world's second largest statue, which is a sitting pose of Ramanuja, it was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India at Hyderabad. So this was a direct subject of question which was related to teachings of Ramanuja. So how this question might have appeared in this year's prelim? Because the Prime Minister of India, he inaugurated that statue. Similarly, the question on your right, you'll see that the Prime Minister, he recently inaugurated the new circuit house near Somnath Temple. So therefore, a question appeared on Somnath Temple. Understood? So this is how current affairs can actually lead directly to a question in prelims examination. So therefore, in this regard, Amir Khusrau and this festival becomes important as far as this prelims is concerned. So there's a fair bit of chance that a question on Amir Khusrau might come, right? So let us try to understand this topic. First of all, let us understand about Jahan-e-Khusro festival. Now, it is a leading Sufi music festival which is held in India. Now, it celebrates the spiritual and poetic legacy of Hazrat Amir Khusrau. Now, Amir Khusrau was a court poet in 5 important kings of medieval India, especially Delhi Sultanate. Now, this festival was founded in 2001 by Muzaffar Ali, who is an acclaimed filmmaker and an artist, under the patronage of Rumi Foundation, right? Now, this festival, it promotes interfaith harmony, cultural diversity and musical heritage. Now, the festival has featured renowned Sufi musicians from India, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey and beyond. So, actually, it celebrates Indian art and culture, particularly belonging to the Sufi tradition, which prominently was developed during medieval period. And the most important figure in India's medieval period as far as art and culture is concerned was Amir Khusrau. So let us understand some details about Amir Khusrau. Now, he was a 13th century poet, also musician and scholar who played a pivotal role in shaping India's syncretic culture. What is this syncretic culture? You will find out in our today's discussion. Now, his actual name was Abu Hassan Yamiduddin Khusrau, who was born in 1253, and his father, he likely came to India from Central Asia in the early 30th century, and his father actually served under the Sultan Iltutmish. Now, Khusrau, he was proud of both of his sides, that on one side he belonged, or his lineage belonged to Central Asia, whereas he grew up in India. So technically his culture developed by fusing 2 different cultures in India, and this is what syncretic culture is all about, right? So his belonging or his origins from Central Asia and belonging to India, it actually played a pivotal role in how he wrote poetry, how he composed music, how he wrote many other literature, right? Now, Khusrau, he was proud of both of his sides and lineage, and his life and writings, it symbolizes the synthesis of 2 different cultures. And this is what syncretic culture is all about, that when you synthesize 2 culture and the resultant product out of it, it actually enriches your own indigenous culture. So when foreign cultures, it positively impacts your culture and your culture automatically makes it better, that is the result of India's syncretic culture. Now, more details about Amir Khusrau. He served under 5 Delhi Sultans over years. This was Muizuddin Qaigabad, Jalaluddin Khilji, Alauddin Khilji, Kutubuddin Shah, as well as Ghyasuddin Tughlaq. Now, Jalaluddin Khilji, he bestowed upon Khusrau the title of Amir, and he was given the title of Parrot of India, also known as Tutiya-Hind, by Alauddin Khilji. Now, he was one of the most beloved disciple of a famous Sufi saint, Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia. The Nizamuddin Dargah, which is located in central Delhi, is dedicated to this particular Sufi saint. So, Amir Khusrau was the disciple of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia. Now, you have to understand, in medieval India, On one side there was the Sufi saint, and against them was the ruling patronage, that was the kingdom of Delhi Sultanate. But you have to understand that Amir Khusrau gained trust both of the kings as well as the Sufi saints. So he actually was trusted by the opposing party. So you can highlight the achievements of Amir Khusrau, that he was so widely renowned that the two sides in the medieval India, they both actually respected and trusted Amir Khusrau. Now, in terms of his contribution to India's art and culture, you have to understand he is regarded as the pioneer of Persian and Hindavi poetry and Sufi Qawwali as well as Indian classical music. Now, in form and content, Khusrau's poetry borrowed heavily from Persian and Turkic, as well as it had local influences, making him one of the most important figures in propagating syncretic Hindu-Muslim culture, which is also known as Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, right? Now, his influences, which was borrowed mainly from other cultures, and it fused it with Indian local elements to make it a new Indian culture, which was called as Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. Now, many of his famous work, it includes Masanvi Nu Sifir, which was the Nine Skies, and also famous qawwalis that were written by him are also used in today's music. For example, Chhap Tilak Sab Chini, Zehali Miskeen, Sakal Ban Phool Rahi Sarso, this was his famous qawwalis. Now, in terms of his contribution to music, he was instrumental in development of modern Indian classical music, and he is credited, although the evidences are very few, but he is still credited with crafting dozens of ragas, creating ornate khyal music, as well as inventing the sitar and tabla. So please make sure to note his important contributions. This might be very important for prelims and also important for mains examination. Okay. Now let us see if you can solve this question. Now, with reference to Amir Khusrau, consider the following statement. Amir Khusrau exclusively wrote in Persian and never used local Indian languages in his poetry. Is it right? The answer obviously is incorrect, because he exclusively fused Persian poetry with Indian languages so as to make a syncretic culture. Now, he served as a court poet under multiple Delhi sultans and also maintained close ties with Chishti Sufi order. Yes, it is right. On Chishti Sufi order, one of the saints was Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia. Now, he is traditionally credited with innovations in Indian classical music, including development of new ragas and musical instruments like sitar and tabla. So, second and third statement becomes incorrect. They are straightforward. First is incorrect, and we have to identify what correct statement. Therefore, second and third is right. Option B, therefore, is the right answer. Kesariya, Baga, Narsimha, Yashi, all of you are correct. Even Narsimha, you're right. Yes, Ashil, you're right. Now, moving to the next article. Also, it appeared in the Indian Express explained section, which is on page 11. Yesterday it appeared, I guess. Now, this actually highlights that the repealed law on dramatic performances, this was flagged by PM Modi as one of his achievement. Now, the context of this article is that Prime Minister in his recent speech highlighted the importance of repealing obsolete laws, and one of the example that he gave, that Government of India, it repealed Dramatic Performances Act officially in 2018. So in this regard, what becomes important for our prelims perspective is what this act actually dealt with and what is the importance in repealing the obsolete colonial laws. Okay, so first of all, let us understand why this Provisions of Dramatic Performances Act 1876, first of all, why was it enacted? Now, the British, it enacted this law after the visit of Prince of Wales, who was Albert Edward, into India in 1875 and 1876, and during his visit was subjected to much ridicule and protest from Indian community. So they wanted to stamp down on India's ability to express dissent. So this was one of the intention why British came up with this law. Now, it was part of a series of colonial laws that was aimed to suppress nationalist activities, right? So the origin of this law was actually having a very sinister design. However, because of many reasons, it continued even after India got independent. Now, let us understand first of all what was the provision of this law that made it a very bad law. First of all, this law gave British government the powers to prohibit public dramatic performances that was scandalous, defamatory, seditious, as well as obscene, and it allowed authorities to ban any play, drama that were deemed to excite dissatisfaction against the government and deprave and corrupt the audience. Now, do not go by the words. This actually wanted Indians not to criticize the colonial government. However, do you think you can't criticize the current Indian government? It is obviously much appreciated a fact about democracies like India that you can openly criticize any policies by the government and it will not put you in any danger, right? This is one of the beauty that democracy gives it to you. It gives you the fundamental right to criticize the government. And even if you look at social media, look at newspapers, you look at media outlets, there are many instances where government policies, and rightly so, they are criticized fairly by the people of India. However, in democratic countries, such laws, they do not have any space, because it actually climbs down, or it actually tries to suppress dissent, which is very essential for democracy, right? Now, any magistrate, he was given power under this particular act to issue search and seizure warrants for places that are suspected of violating that act, prominently theaters and drama areas, and also arrest individuals who are performing these prohibited acts. And the punishment under this act was prescribed as a jail term up to 3 months and a fine, or even including both. Now, there are many laws that were repealed by the current government. The present government has launched a flagship initiative to repeal obsolete laws in order to improve the ease of doing business index. Now, since 2014, the government has repealed over 2000 obsolete laws, and it has declared invalid, although this particular act was declared invalid by courts earlier. However, this was formally repealed by the parliament under the Repealing and Amending Second Act of 2017. Now, what is the actual validity of colonial laws in India? Let us try to understand this. Now, when India got independent, India came up with its own constitution. Now, India's own constitution, under Article 372, it provides that laws that were in force at the time of independence, that originated in colonial time, they will continue to remain in force until or unless they are repealed or modified by the current Indian government, right? However, colonial era laws, they do not enjoy the same presumption of constitutionality as compared to the laws which are passed by the independent Indian Parliament. Now, what is the laws which are passed by independent Indian Parliament? Suppose any law is passed by Indian Parliament, and if people feel that it is actually unconstitutional, they have to make an appeal in the High Court or Supreme Court of the country and prove how this act actually is unconstitutional. So the burden of proof in highlighting if any law is passed by Indian Parliament, is it unconstitutional, the burden of proof remains on the petitioner. On the other hand, in cases of colonial era laws, the burden of proof in establishing the constitutionality of the law, it remains not with the petitioner but by the government only, right? So when challenged, these colonial era laws, the government actually must justify their validity in the court, and then only they will remain in fruition. Whereas on the other hand, in contrast, laws that are enacted by Indian Parliament, which is independent Indian Parliament, it is assumed to be constitutional until or unless proven otherwise in the court of law. Understood the difference between these two? You have any doubt? Please ask me if you have any doubt regarding this. I'm assuming you do not have any doubt, so I'm moving forward. Now, let us see if we can solve this question with reference to continuation of colonial era laws in India. Consider the following statements. Article 372 of the Indian Constitution, it allows colonial era laws to continue until or unless they are repealed or modified. This is actually a correct statement, as I've already highlighted in my discussion. Now, colonial era laws, they enjoy the same presumption of constitutionality as laws enacted after independence. This is incorrect. I told you, right? In terms of establishing their constitutionality, the burden of proof in case of colonial era laws, it rests with the government. Whereas in case of Indian or independent Indian laws, here the burden of proof remains with the people who are actually moving against this law in the court, right? So therefore, second statement is incorrect, first is right. Therefore, option A is the right answer. Yes, Sarang, Narsimha, Baga, Ashil, you all are correct. Yashi, yes, you're right. Now, as I tell you every day, in case you do not have or you have problems in understanding the important concepts related to many subjects in UPSC, you always have an option to register for Sampoorn course, which are available at StudyIQ website. Now, the benefits of Sampoorn course, as you can understand by the name itself, it provides you with complete coverage for your all UPSC related needs. You will be given a study material which consists of 18 different books. You will also be provided with teaching in the class itself for all the subjects which is important for UPSC, and also you can practice your learning with solving prelims related test series and also writing mains related test series. Also, if case you have any doubts, if you have any non-academic problems as well, you will be provided a mentor who will be available for you 24/7 to help you in any need, right? Now, these benefits are available in Sampoorn course, for which you can register on our website, and the path of this website is actually now this is our website, right? First of all, you have to make an account here. Now, when you have to make an account, click on Explore Courses button here. When you click on Explore Courses, there will be variety of courses that are available. Now, suppose if you are not comfortable with Hindi, and it is very fine. So, there is also a dedicated English batch which is available at our StudyIQ website here. That is P2I Foundation 2026 March English batch. Now, admissions are going on for this batch right now, and the batch will start on March of 7th, and the discounts is available for this particular batch up till March of 6th. Now, if you click on this tile right now, the course is available at 37,499 rupees. But let me tell you a way where you can get discounts or even on this amount, right? Now, there might be a ticker which is available on the bottom half of your screen, which tells you to use the code ATS Live to get maximum discounts on our platform, right? So, click on Buy Now here. There will be an option that is to offer code available, add promo code. Click on add, enter coupon code here, write ATS Live, right? Click on ATS Live and click here apply. Now see, the course fees has reduced from 37,499 to 29,999, which is a discount of 7,499, which is a huge amount of money, right? So please do not forget to add the code ATS Live when you're registering for the courses, and let me tell you or recommend this course to you. It is immensely beneficial for your UPSC preparation. Okay, now let us move with the next article of the day. This article appeared in today's newspaper on page 9, and it states a Lancet study which says that about a third of India's population will be obese by 2050. So this is actually a cause of worry. In that regard, let us try to understand the context of this article. Now, this article actually calls obesity an epidemic in the world, because it is grappling many people, not just in India but across the world. Whereas it has predicted that in India by 2050, 21.8 crore men and 23.1 crore women, which combines up to almost 45 crore people, that constitute about nearly a third of India's population. By 2050, they will be obese. As far as global obesity epidemic is concerned, here more than half of all adults and third of all children and adolescents, they will become overweight or obese by 2050. So this highlights the actually propensity of obesity not just in India but in other countries as well. Now, in terms of people who will be affected by this obesity, the worrying trend is that obesity will affect not just children and adolescents but also young men and women. Now, India has topped the chart in this category in terms of absolute numbers of people with obesity in 2021, and in terms of absolute count, it has surpassed China and United States, who were ahead of India in 1990. So this highlights that the problem of obesity is much more prominent in India, and we should have to take many measures in order to control this menace. Now, why this actually numbers matter, you have to understand this. First of all, the projected increase is concerning, considering that half of world's population will be obese and overweight adult. They will continue to live in just 8 countries, which includes India. Also, the study, it has says that the increasing prevalence of obesity is much more prominent. Earlier it was prominent in high income countries, now it is prominent in low and middle income countries, and it combines with existing health related problems in this country. What are existing health related problems? That is pervasive infectious diseases, childhood malnutrition. These low and middle income countries are grappling these kind of problems. Now there is an added burden of obesity to it. So these burdens of diseases, it will add to the stress of healthcare system, which is not well developed in these countries. So that is why this is a huge cause of worry, especially for low and middle income countries, because it adds overall to the burden of healthcare system, and it adds to the number of diseases that might grapple the population of these countries. Okay. Also, the study, it says that the childhood undernutrition, it also triggers many kind of adaptations, that is accumulation of energy in fat tissue, which can lead to obesity in the adulthood. Now, Indians, they are genetically predisposed to storing fat in their abdomen, and abdominal obesity, it contributes to metabolic syndrome, which increases the risk of, say, onset of many lifestyle disorders like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and even sometimes they can lead to cancers. So therefore, obesity is bad, and it is particularly bad for middle income and low income countries because their health systems are not very good, and they also have many other kind of diseases which are prevalent in the society. Also, in cases of India, we have seen that Indians, they are genetically predisposed to storing fat in their belly, and this belly fat or abdominal fat, it can lead to onset of many lifestyle diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even cancers. Now, this article also tells us the reasons for why the obesity is increasing, and the most important reason that was highlighted is the increase in consumption of processed food which have high amount of salt, sugar, as well as fat. Now, multinational food beverage corporations and fast food chains, they are shifting their focus. Earlier they were investing in high income countries like US, now they are shifting towards low and middle income countries. Now these are the countries where population growth is high, the per capita income in these countries are increasing, and there are already weaker regulations as far as food products are concerned. So therefore, these multinational food chains want to harvest this increase in demand in the middle income countries, and therefore they are setting up of their units in middle income countries. Also, between 2009 and 2019, the largest annual growth in ultra processed food and beverage sales per capita was observed actually in countries like Cameroon, India, and Vietnam. All of these are middle income and low income countries. So when the availability of fast food, particularly by companies who were earlier investing in West, now they are investing in these countries, so the availability of fast food is expected to increase, and Indians, due to their increased disposable income, they are making, or they are being very amenable to consumption of these kind of processed foods. Okay. Also, with increasing urbanization, what we have seen that it can lead to reduced physical activity, because you live in confined spaces where your overall physical movement is very low. You travel to your workplaces by car or by public transport. Also, it leads to lesser amount of physical effort as compared to people moving around in rural areas by bicycle, which leads to physical exercise, and they are also bound by desk based jobs, and this is leading to overall less amount of physical activity. And a shift towards calorie dense processed food, which is high in refined carbohydrates, trans fat, and sugars, has significantly contributed to the weight gain, particularly among the urban living people. And also, there are prevalent instances of high work related stresses, poor sleep, mental health disorders. All of this directly or indirectly can be linked to obesity. So these are the causative factors which are leading to obesity in India, right? Also, what needs to be done was also given in the article. In this regard, this article highlights that the study, it says that the current policies which are implemented in the country, they are only implemented in only about 40% of the countries that have any kind of operational policy to combat obesity. But when it comes to the lower income and middle income countries, here only 10% of the countries have some kind of a policy to combat obesity. Now, earlier, most of the efforts in order to ascertain obesity was focused on the indicator of body mass index, right? But we have understood in our previous discussion that solely relying on BMI to calculate obesity can be misleading. So therefore, a new Lancet study has suggested that we need to ascertain other indicators also, like waist to height ratio, waist circumference, and also the percentage of body fat, and as these indicators can help us identify obesity in a better manner. Also, what we need to understand is that for cases of India particularly, obesity needs to be officially recognized as a major non-communicable disease, and therefore its prevention and management should be integrated in India's public health policies. For that, what we need to do is that a comprehensive national obesity program should include awareness program, school-based intervention, workplaces wellness programs, access to treatment, taxation on unhealthy foods. As you may have heard, in many Nordic countries like Sweden, there are high taxes on soft drinks which are actually very high, which has high presence of sugar in it. So such kind of policies can also be brought into India, because currently in India there are no such taxes which are levied on processed food or food having high amount of sodium, high amount of salt, etc. Right? So such kind of policies can be brought into India. Is there any law to control fast food in India? Sadly, no. Bagasping's FSSI should be held accountable. First of all, FSSI should be provided with the responsibility to control, then only it can be held accountable, right? Now also, there is a need to establish a national registry to track obesity trends, outcomes, and interventions Therefore, it has become an important way. So the way, first of all, to control these kind of obesity is to make people aware about the risk of obesity, to bring certain policies that actually discourage you from consuming these fast food, discourage you from consuming these kind of high items which have high amount of sugar. Therefore, such kind of policies should be brought into India. Understood? Now, Dipanshi, how can fast food be controlled? That is one's personal choice. It can't be, right. But you have to make people aware that fast food is actually bad for your health. So actually have to make them aware so that they themselves can reduce the consumption of these kind of food. That is the most effective measure. You can't just stop people from doing anything. Educate people, then Dipanshi. Yes, regulation of these companies are very right. Yes. Bagaswings, you are also correct. Now let us try to solve this practice question. Please pay your attention here, not in the comment section. Okay, that is only for me. Consider the following statements regarding the obesity levels in India. The prevalence of obesity among adolescents in India has remained stable over the past 3 decades. Do you think the prevalence of obesity in India has remained stable? The answer is no. This is incorrect. Increased consumption of ultra processed food and sedentary lifestyle are major contributing factors to obesity epidemic in India. This is correct. India has implemented a nationwide tax on unhealthy processed food to curb rising obesity level. Has India implemented a nationwide tax? The answer is no. India should implement, but it is not currently implemented. Now, therefore, option statement 2 is only correct. First and third are incorrect. We have to identify correct statement. Therefore, option B, 2 only is the right answer. Bagaswing, Sashil, you are right. Sarang, you are also right. Now, moving to the last article of the day. As I told you in the beginning of the session, that in these days you will find that the articles on critical minerals are a lot in the newspaper. But in our previous discussion, what we have taken is that we have taken an economic centric view of these critical minerals. But now today, these kind of articles gives us an opportunity to deal with critical minerals from the point of view of geopolitics, right? So therefore, it becomes important also from GS paper 2 perspective. Now, this article appeared in today's newspaper and this article appeared in newspaper 2 days back. So I am borrowing the information from these 2 articles to provide you with a complete coverage in today's discussion, right? Now, the context of this article is actually in 20th century, many nations, they were fighting over control of the important resource back then, that was crude oil. Now, the focus of countries have moved on to the new oil, which according to today's article are the critical minerals that are lithium, cobalt, nickel, rare earth elements, etc. Now, why are these critical minerals? Because these are backbones of future technologies and also their availability and supply, they can be affected because these are concentrated with only a handful of countries. That is what makes these minerals critical minerals. Okay, now some items or some minerals are categorized as critical minerals, but nations, they have come up with their own definition of critical minerals. That for India has categorized 30 minerals as critical minerals. Okay, so the number of critical minerals can vary as far as countries are concerned, but these kind of minerals, these are categorized as critical minerals by every country. Okay, so this is the context of this article. Now let us understand how can these minerals play an important role in geopolitics. Now, first of all, these minerals, they are foundation of future technologies. Future technologies like developing electric vehicles, you require lithium ion battery, you require cobalt for that. Similarly, for making solar cells, for making semiconductors, for making defense equipments, all of these require huge amount of critical minerals. So therefore, these are foundation of future technologies. Now, nations that control the resources of critical minerals, they have a leverage over the global supply and technological advancement. So therefore, geopolitics can play an important role here. Also, it is an area where US, China are involved in currently a strategic rivalry, because currently most of the supplies of these rare earth elements and critical minerals, these are dominated by China, and this is not liked at all by US. US itself wants to take control of these supplies. Therefore, China dominates 75% of global trade in critical minerals, and US wants to seize the control from China and wants to have the control of its own. Also, what we have seen that the nations who have the supply and deposits of these critical minerals, they are weaponizing the supply chain itself. For example, China itself, it banned the exports of key rare earth elements and also critical minerals in 2023, which actually limits other countries' access to these kind of minerals. So that is why these critical minerals, they play a crucial role in geopolitics. Also, there are other important reasons further. For energy transition, we require high amount of solar cells, we require wind energy projects, and also we need to depend on EVs. All of this require in one form or the other some kind of critical minerals. Also, national security particularly depend on it, because for a nation to have a national security, it requires large presence of defense related equipments. And how you can manufacture defense related equipments? By these critical minerals themselves. Also, possession of these kind of critical minerals gives any nation an economic leverage, and therefore there is ongoing resource wars among many countries. As you might have seen, that US is demanding that Ukraine should let it mine its significant reserves of critical minerals so that US can actually mine these minerals in Ukraine. Similarly, US has tried, or it has showed an intention to take possession of Greenland and also Democratic Republic of Congo. Here China is increasing its presence, and the intention of these countries to increase its presence in Ukraine, Greenland and Democratic Republic of Congo is by sole intention to control the supply chains of these critical minerals. Also, many nations who do not have access or supply of these critical minerals, they are forming an formal or an informal alliances which are called as strategic alliances, and also they are undertaking supply chain diversification. For example, US, EU, India, Japan, they are forming alliances to secure these supplies of critical minerals, and in that regard India is also signing agreements with Australia, Argentina, African nations in order to reduce its import dependence on countries like China. So this is why all over the world, not just India but China, US, etc., all of this wants to gain possession of these critical minerals. So that is why it plays a crucial role in these days geopolitics. Okay. Also, let us understand India's position as far as these critical minerals are concerned. Now, currently, like crude oil, India is highly dependent on imports to meet its domestic demand for critical minerals because it lacks large deposits of these critical minerals. There are, however, some deposits of some critical minerals in India. For example, lithium can be found in Jammu and Kashmir, but it was recently found. Therefore, exploration is at a very early stage in India. Whereas rare earth elements are concerned, India has possession of about 5% of global reserves of rare earth elements. It is located mainly in Andhra Pradesh as well as Odisha. Whereas graphite is concerned, India has large reserves of graphite, thankfully, which is located in Jharkhand, Odisha, Arunachal Pradesh, etc. Now, in terms of current challenges for India is concerned, India has limited exploration and mining infrastructure, which actually makes even these limited reserves unmineable for India. Therefore, India has to depend on imports of critical minerals, which is even greater than India's imports for oil. So you can understand the luck of India in times of possession of these critical commodities is very bad, and therefore there is a need for increasing investment in India's domestic refining capacities and processing facilities. Now, in this regard, let us understand what can India do in order to reduce its dependence on critical minerals. First of all, India needs to develop a self-sufficient manufacturing base in all these items, which requires a steady supply of critical minerals. So in that regard, what India can do is that it can undertake domestic exploration, first of all, to harness whatever is available in India, right? For that, it can liberalize the sector and also incentivize private players to invest in mining infrastructure, to undertake mining activities and process these minerals, ultimately to manufacture these critical minerals. And also, India needs to strategically engage with other countries. India is doing so right now, but India has also needs to sign supply agreements with friendly countries, and these supply agreements will have to be long term in nature. Also, these friendly countries should secure long term partnership in order to ensure resource security for India. Further, there is a need for India to reform its policy in order to achieve mineral security. What India can do actually is India can actually invite private players to mine a particular location and allow the private companies to possess or monetize whatever they are mining in that region. So it will actually encourage private players to set up this infrastructure, and then you can allow the private players to sell these minerals in the open market. So this is how you can actually gain sufficiency in mining and processing of critical minerals, which is very essential for India in coming future. Understood this article? Now, this is your question for today. Please attempt your questions, and like every day, please make sure to submit your answers before 8 p.m. if you want me to evaluate it. If for some reason you're submitting the answers after 8 p.m., I will ask any of your other fellow aspirants to evaluate it for you. Understood this deal? Now you can submit your answers on this Telegram channel, ATS Live, and this is your question for today. Please solve this question. Let me know the correct answer in the comment section after this video ends, and do not forget to click the thumbs up button as it helps us keep motivated. Okay, so this was all from my side for today. I'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Please have a very good evening and a very good night.